Hey planner friends, welcome back to my channel. My name's Alicia and today's video we're going to be matching inks to the Hobonichi planners. Alrighty, so if you've watched any of my other videos, you would know that I am a massive fan of the Hobonichi. I've got the Hobonichi Cousin and I've also got a Hobonichi A6, and I've been using the Hobonichi Cousin for years. So many years in fact that I almost have a decade's worth of the free pens that Hobonichi gives when you buy them. That being said, I have predominantly used either gel pen or black ink in my Hobonichi planners, which I think is kind of a shame because there are some gorgeous colors inside the planners, and I thought this year the best way for me to get the most out of my pen collection and really get to know my different pens would be to actually use them all, because this is my Pilot Vanishing Point, this is my Pilot Decimo, and this pen I have permanently inked with black. So this has been pretty much one of the only pens that I've been consistently using since I got it. So to change that, this year I decided I'm going to use different colored inks every single month, and I'm going to match the ink to the monthly colors in the planner. And I'm going to show you guys the inks that I've chosen to match. So I'm going to preface this with a couple of things, so the intro might be a little bit long. The first thing that I want to say is that almost every single ink that I have to show you is from Diamine. The reason I've done this is because it is one of the most affordable ink brands that has good quality ink. It is easily accessible for people everywhere, and also they have a huge color range. So even though these are the colors that I've chosen, if you go onto Reddit or just the internet, there are heaps of colors that are similar to the ones that I'm going to show you that will match. There are only 2 months that I do not have a Diamine ink match for, and that is because I already owned inks that would match the colors for the planner, and I didn't want to buy more ink for the sake of it because I already knew that I would be using what I have in my collection. And the last thing that I want to say is I think that these are pretty good matches. They're probably not perfect and you can probably find better matches yourself, but I wanted to make sure to keep it very accessible and affordable so that if you wanted to do this as well, it's not going to break the bank. Okay, all that being said, we're going to jump straight into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the colors swatched out in my Hobonichi Cousin as well as on the paper. So I've gone ahead and done my little stamps. This is the stamp I'm using. This is the brand. I got mine in Japan, but if you search up ink bottle stamp Beverly, it should pop up and there should be a ton of different retailers depending on where you live that you can purchase this from. I also used my Versa Magic ink to stamp. Alrighty, so we're going to start with January, and I'm going to show you 2 different ink options for January. So the 2 ink options that I have for January are Diamine Petra and Diamine Ancient Copper. So I think Petra is actually a really good color match. I will just say that I would recommend using a broader pen. I had this inked in my Sailor Pro Gear Slim with a medium fine nib, and I found that there was a bit too much shading and this was a little bit too light to be fully legible. So for that reason, I actually went with Ancient Copper, but if you're a fan of broader nibs, this color would be perfect. I did want to give 2 options for January as well because I didn't want to just give a Cult Pens exclusive. I wanted to make sure you'd be able to get the ink even if you didn't shop from Cult Pens. So these are the 2 options that I think are the closest, and this is how they look in the Hobonichi. So as you can see, Petra is pretty much bang on. It is a gorgeous orangey reddish color, and the writing sample looks so similar to the printed text as well, whereas Diamine Ancient Copper is definitely darker. Shade wise it's the same, I would say, and tonally it is very much the same color. It is just a darker version. So if you want something more legible or you like finer nibs, I would go with Ancient Copper, but Petra is a good match. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and put Ancient Copper in my swatch. I will also say, now that I've been using this ink for the whole month, actually I'm going to zoom you guys in as well. Now that I've been using Ancient Copper for pretty much the whole month actually, it is a very, very nice ink. It performs really well and it's very saturated. However, because it is very saturated, sometimes it dries quite quickly, meaning that it also dries on the nib quite quickly. And I don't have hard starts, but occasionally my pen will struggle to dot eyes. Again, you might not have this problem if you use a different pen and ink combo. I'm just using my Platinum 3776 in the fine nib. So that's something to note, but I do really enjoy this ink and I think it's a very good match for January. So this is Ancient Copper and this matches January. Alrighty, now we're gonna move on to February. February I actually found very difficult to match, and in the end the ink that I chose to purchase I didn't really feel like matched that well, so I kind of pivoted, and February is going to be a bit unconventional. This is one of my weaker matches, but I will show you what I have. So originally I purchased Diamine Mikasa and I thought it would be a good match, but as you can see it is just too brown. It's almost too saturated. The color of the February pages is a very desaturated brown, and this was just almost too warm toned. And then I realized Diamine Dusted Truffle without the shimmer is pretty good. So there's quite a bit of shading, but in the parts that aren't shaded, you can see that the color is actually very similar. So Dusted Truffle, the base, is definitely brown, but it is a very like cool toned, almost yellowy kind of a brown, and I think that that color actually matches very well. So I'm not going to agitate the bottle because we're going to use this without the shimmer, and I think it's a much closer match than Mikasa. I have also seen that Diamine Espresso is a good match. The only thing is that these all come in larger bottles, like they don't come in the 30ml bottles from Diamine, so you are stuck with more ink, and they do also end up being more expensive because of the larger size bottle. So I would kind of just pick one of the colors that you personally like and stick with it. I really like Dusted Truffle and I like that it's got shimmer. I will probably use it with the shimmer when I ink a pen for next month because I just think that that's really fun. But if you don't like shimmer, you can either get a sample and use it unagitated or pick a different ink. That being said though, this one I actually think is really close to the February color, so I'm very happy with that match. Okay, we're going to move on to March, and this is one of the ones that I do not have a Diamine ink to show you. So for March, I decided to use Sailor Shikiori Yozakura. If you watched my fountain pen ink collection video from a few years ago, this was and is still one of my favorite inks of all time. I've actually made a decent dent in the bottle, and I think it's a perfect match for March in the Hobonichis. So that is the color that I'm going to be using. I love the Shikiori inks. I think that they perform very well, and this one in particular is just the most gorgeous purpley pinky color ever. If I were an ink color, it would be this. Also, this ink pairs with the Sailor Hachimonjiya Kubo Sakura Bloom Pro Gear perfectly. So I can already tell you that this will be my pen and ink pairing for the month of March. So this is Sailor Shikiori. I actually like bought this one on a whim when I was in Japan, and I am so glad that I did, because it is one of my favorite inks of all time. Okay, so that is going to be the color for March. Now we're going to move into April. April is actually one of the more difficult colors again to match in the Hobonichi, and this is the color that I came up with. So the thing about April is that it's a very like not hot pink, but it's quite pink, and it's a very unique shade. So I ended up going with Diamine Inkvent Cashmere Rose, and I think it's a pretty good match. I will say it is a bit darker and a bit more saturated than the April color, but it's good enough for me, and I really do like this color, so I'm not mad about having it in a full bottle. I think a lot of pinks tend to be a bit too bright or a bit too pink to match April, and I think that Cashmere Rose is the perfect saturation level, and it's got that like peachy tone to it as well, which I think is what a lot of other pinks miss. So I think this one is one of the better matches. Could there be a better one? Yes. Am I married to this one for the next 50 years that I plan to use the Hobonichi? Probably not. If I find something better, I will replace it. However, for now, I do think that this is a good match, and I really do like this ink color, and it performs really well. So that is my color match for the month of April. Okay, now we're gonna move in to May. Those of you that don't know, May is my birthday month, and I actually really love the color of the Hobonichi in May. It's this gorgeous green, and I think that's so fun. So for May, I have Diamine Wagner. Now, I actually think that this is the perfect match. I don't think it gets any better than that. This ink is from the Composer collection. I actually have another one from the Composer collection in here. I think a lot of them match quite well, but Wagner for May is perfection. It is, to my eye, the exact same color, so I'm very stoked about that. I'm very excited for May, and I'm very excited about which pen I'm gonna put this ink in. I haven't fully decided, but we've got a few months until we get there, so we will see. I just think that this match truly could not be any better. Okay. Diamine Wagner. Alrighty. Now the next month is June, and for June I also have two potential colors. So we've got Diamine Cult Pens, one of their exclusives, in the Great Wall of China, and then we also have Diamine Classic Green. Now I actually think that the Great Wall of China is a better match. As you can see, to my eye, it looks identical. However, Classic Green is available from any retailer that stocks Diamine because it's part of their classic line, whereas the Great Wall of China is only available via Cult Pens. For that reason, I will swatch out Classic Green. However, for me personally, I will probably actually go with the Great Wall of China because I think the ink pairing is a better match. I think it's actually the perfect match. That being said, it is again much less saturated. So there is a slight concern that it might suffer the same issue as Petra, especially because almost all of the inks from the Wonders of the World collection that Cult Pens and Diamine did are very desaturated, so I'm slightly concerned that they might all perform a little bit more, or just not as well with my finer nibs. They might be a bit too illegible. But that is only something I will find out once I ink it, and so we will see. But again, I've chosen to show you guys the more accessible option, which is classic green. However, I do think the Great Wall of China is a slightly better match. Okay, now we're going to move on to July. July is a very, very, very bright bluey, greeny kind of a color. Aqua, I would say. And I think the best match for July is Diamine Eau de Nil. I've seen a lot of people recommend Aurora Borealis, but I do think Aurora Borealis is too green. To my eye, Diamine Eau de Nil is a near perfect match, and I think that this color will be great. It's very saturated, so it's legible, and it's a very, very good match. This ink is also quite popular, and if you do already have Aurora Borealis, I would actually say that they're similar enough that you don't need both. But if you are buying an ink for the purpose of matching it to the Hobonichi Cousin or the A6, this would be my pick. Normally I don't gravitate towards blues that are this color, but I am excited to write with it when the time comes. Alright, and this one is for July. Okay, now we're going to move on to my second ink that is not a Diamine ink. This one is for the month of August, and for the month of August I have picked Kyo Ero Soft Snow of O'Hara. Again, it's a very like purpley blue kind of a color. I would say it's kind of like a denim blue, to be honest with you, and I think that this color is the perfect match. I did try Prussian Blue by Diamine just to see if it would be close, because I did purchase Prussian Blue. However, I actually do not think that they're close at all. Prussian Blue is too blue, and there's not enough of that purpley tint to it to match. So if you own Prussian Blue and you don't want to buy another ink and you don't mind if it's close enough, I would say it's an okay match. You can definitely get away with it. However, it's not close enough, in my opinion. Okay, and this is for August. Now I will kind of just show you Prussian Blue, and this is the swatch of it on the cap that I've gone ahead and done, and we're just going to compare it to the planner, and you can see it's definitely more blue and not enough purple. So I don't really think it's a good match. Okay, we're almost there. The next ink is going to be for the month of September. The one thing about the Hobonichi is it does have a lot of colors that I would say are very similar, namely January, September, and December. So September is like a browny, orangey color. would say it's more brown, I suppose. And the color that I think matches the best is Diamine Ochre. Another one that's very close is Diamine Warm Brown. Warm Brown and Ochre are almost the exact same color. I just prefer Ochre because I do not like the way Warm Brown dries. To me, it dries very flat and almost paint-like. So for that reason, I would opt for Ochre. But if you do already have Warm Brown, that's definitely close enough that I don't feel like you need to own both. Okay, and that's for September. Alrighty, now we're gonna move into October. October is a very pretty purple color, and I think Diamine Damson is a great match. It's very saturated, it's very easy to read. I think in writing it's just a little bit darker than the color in the planner, but I think it's close enough, and tonally it's the same kind of purple. This is a very cool toned purple. The Hobonichi is not a very warm toned purple, and I think it's harder to find cool toned purples. So I think Damson is a very good match. I think it won't be as saturated a color once I put it in a pen, so the writing should look closer, because it's very interesting, but when you swatch using a glass dip pen, the color is more concentrated than when you put it into a pen. So like when I did my swatches with Petra, I did not have any issues with legibility, but once I put it into a pen, even though I would say that the thickness of the nib was similar, if not a bit thicker than that of my glass dip pen, it made it very difficult to read. So I think this inked in a pen would be virtually the same color as the October color in the planner. Alright, now we're going to move into November, and the color that I've picked for November is Diamine Sherwood Green. Again, the writing is just a smidge darker, but the swatch color I would say is very similar to the color in the planner. It's a very vibrant, almost emerald green, and that's Sherwood Green. I actually do wish that Hobonichi had the November and December colors switched, because to me this green is so Christmassy, and I think that this would have been a really fun December color, whereas I feel like the color that they chose for December falls a bit flat for me. And every time I see November in the Hobonichi planners, my brain is like, oh, Christmas, Christmas. But that's just me. Okay, so again, this is Diamine Sherwood, and this is the November color. Alrighty, so we have made it to our last color, the color for December, and I'll show you the one that I chose. This is the other one from the Diamine Composers collection, and we have Diamine Strauss. As you can see, tonally, I think that they are identical, and in writing, to me, they are practically identical. I think that this is a fantastic match, and it looks great. That being said, if you didn't want to spend too much money, you could probably get away with using the same color for January and December, and there's enough time between the 2 months that it wouldn't feel boring. Like if it was like January and March, I can understand not wanting to use the same ink, but I do think that if you want to save that money, you can definitely double up. You could probably even double up for September as well, because again, those 3 months of the Hobonichi planner are criminally similar, which is kind of a shame, but anyway, it is what it is. So we've got Diamond, Strauss for December. Alrighty, I'm gonna let all these swatches dry and then I'm gonna come back and show you what they look like all together. Alrighty, so all the inks are dry and I'm just gonna run you through the whole color palette. So again, for January we have Ancient Copper, February is Dusted Truffle, March is Sailor Shikiori Yozakura, April is Cashmere Rose, May is Wagner, June is Classic Green, July is Eau de Nil, August is Kier Eero Softener of O'Hara, September is Urka, October is Damson, November is Sherwood, and December is Strauss. So those are all 12 of the colors laid out together. I think it's a really pretty color palette and I'm so excited to use these colors throughout the year. If you do end up using any of these combinations, I'd love to know. Or if you have any colors that you feel like match months of the Hobonichi, drop them down below so that people can take suggestions and recommendations and see what they have in their own collection that might match. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more content from me. Alrighty, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.